We're back looking at another horror-themed action game that starts with an O. Yes, you can see what we're going for now in the month of October. So yeah, we've seen the new revamped beginning of the series, but let's take a look at the final game before that happened. Onechanbara has always been doing some wild stuff with each game, so let's see where that led him with Z2 Chaos. But first, this is combat overview. Here we go over the general controls, the main mechanics, who or what we use them on, and then seeing how it all comes together. So Aya and Saki are here of course, but a new set of vampiric sisters join the titular zombie hunters on this world tour of theirs slaying abroad. And well, with the extra hands on deck, they really leaned into the tag team aspects from the 360 title. Here's a very low quality clip I got way back when I played it the first time. Yeah, you can do some wild looking tag in tag out combos. I would be lying if I said this was planned. Most of it was just lucky mashing to make something pretty alright. But yeah, let's find out what's going on here and try to recreate some of these. Honestly, it's going to be pretty much similar to what we just went over with Origin, so I'll try to keep things moving the best I can. We have our basic light attacks, low committal, lightning fast, and ends by setting them away. Got heavy attacks as well that will do slightly more damage and again will send away. No stun to build with these like in Lollipop or Origin, and when it comes to finding out there's unique enders, I don't think there is. Never had the time to test it out because we have delays, one leading into a Dempsey roll or a crowd control ender, mashing timed inputs, if that even makes sense, to repeat a single attack until you drop that rhythm, held inputs to launch on a dime mid-combo, rotating the left thumbstick to set up sweeps, and yeah, there's different versions if you use lights or heavies. There's directional attacks, the classic stinger, to toss them away, but depending on who you use, which weapon, and if it's the lightning or heavy version, it can be a yank or a slam down. So you can actually influence enemy states again. Oh yeah, we even have a guard break by double tapping forward instead, or even the stomp by pressing square and X near floored enemies. Dash attacks too, some to get you in to start your next combo, or this drop kick to send them flying, or this lingering lariat to mow through crowds. Okay, instantly we can see Z2 Chaos has everything from the past games and more that Origin would later slim down on. Before we go any further, I'm sure you noticed, but we still have an offhand weapon. Everyone has two at all times, and can swap between them on the fly. And believe me when I say you can do that at any time. We have the WoW-rounded katana, dual blades, rapid punches with gauntlets, multi-hitting chainsaws, tethered daggers that reminds me of Bladed Chaos and Bayonetta's yo-yos all in one. We also have sub-weapons that's unique to everyone, from boomerang to flail. Saki has something we'll cover later, and kunais. And once you guess it, they have very distinct pros and cons. Kagura's boomerangs can multi-hit as it sends out and once more as it returns, which lets you act independently while that happens, allowing you to combo off it. Not only does it have a 360 rotation attack that follows you both grounded and in the air, but we also get a charge version too, which is something only Kagura can do. There is some drawback though, because it only goes horizontal. So there's times it'll miss far below or really high airborne enemies. But that's where Aya comes into play with the kunais, since it has a lot more range and possible angles to reach. You're able to directly hit any locked on enemy above or below you, which yeah, sets up some DMC like Ebony and Ivory juggles. And Saya with her flail has a forward attack to pancake enemies, but its main use is having the best crowd control movement in the entire game. Just look at this. She can only do these directional attacks grounded though, while Kagura can do them airborne, for example. So already we have some give and take to consider with each character. But since the game is all about character swapping, we get some on-the-fly setups use their unique tools when needed. So one of the key mechanics of Onechanbara is still here, pool combinations. They're timed inputs having you attack when the current one lands for increased damage, shorter startup, and extended strings you won't get if you just mash. Of course they work for our main weapons, but also for our sub ones too. Only in Saya though, the other girls don't have that timed property to their sub weapons. Also, this game doesn't let you have the timing bar outside of the training room like in Origin, so it's something you really gotta feel for over time. Now, this game has you pull off crazy airborne combos a lot more than any other Onechan game. Yeah, they were kinda there in Origin, but we saw what's possible with that clip from earlier. So for starters, we have jump cancels. You can do this at any point, no matter what, but they're a bit different than Origin, because you have to actually do this precise quick tap in order to get this regular jump. It's like Smash Bros. Short hops, basically. But yeah, it lets you follow those airborne enemies. Now, if you hold jump instead, you'll do a chase. Shooting forward with the Sen on Kagura, Aerial Rave, how it'll knock multiple nearby enemies up with you. Doesn't matter if they're standing, flat on the floor, or hell, even if they're already in the air, they'll be launched with you. You can only do this twice in a single combo, so you need to touch the ground to restock them. But yeah, this lets you start some craziness. Some air stuff you can do, for example, is with Kagura's Yo-Yo, you can pull someone in, both grounded and airborne. Combine that with the drop kick, basically functioning as an airborne stinger that everyone gets. So now we're kind of doing some Spider-Man plays, right? And of course there's pros and cons to these as well. Saki and Aya have this rising hitbox and downward slam attack all in one move that'll bounce enemies up with their heavy attack. So it doesn't matter if you're close up or far above them, they're going to be hit with this OTG launcher. While Kagura can OTG and launch if close, but too high up and it won't hit him at all. And Saya has this lingering hitbox that does let her hover, setting up some great aerial combo extensions, but she needs to be in their face. So every single aspect of the kits are pretty different so far, as you can tell. And add on the fly hot swapping with the 4 characters who have 2 weapons and different sub-weapons to use this or that option of theirs, which yeah, can lead to some cool interactions. So it doesn't matter if you're on the ground, in the air, mid-combo, doing basic attacks, using sub-weapons, middle of air raves, during any of their animations if it's on hit, whiff, and like startup. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Team combos are such a huge part of the game, like I mentioned earlier, so they put no limits on you. Onto defenses, we have this dash step to evade. You can mash it to your heart's content, no end lag. Just zig and zag. You already know it takes priority, canceling pretty much anything, which lets you do perfect dodges and then counter-attack follow-up. But only the classic duo can do this. The new sisters cannot. They'll just iframe through attacks. But they do have their own support passives we'll look at later on, so don't worry. Just we'll go back around to Saki's sub-weapon. It's actually a counter. Go into the stance, and if an enemy hits it, you send them flying. That's pretty much it, but still, there's some give and take to consider who you want up in front. And oh yeah, the dodge offsetting we had back in the day with Onechan is still here too. Looking at the HUD, the orange to green gradient is our health. Their gray health will heal over time when benched, just like in the 360 game, so there's more incentive to swap them in and out when needed. But Saya and Kagura can hold Square and X to heal themselves while on the field, which is pretty cool. Now that other red meter, the lines our health, is our blood splatter stain gauge. This fills up as you take out enemies, and once it's full, just click in both thumbsticks and go into this powered up state. This new transformation was brought with the Vampiric Sisters. And as the story progresses, our classic pair gets this as well. In this form, you'll deal way more damage, have increased speed, and get hyper armor. Your health will gradually empty though, but those red orbs heal you instead of adding to the stain like before. But yeah, this just lets you tear things up way more. But yeah, that blue segmented meter above our health is ecstasy. I didn't know this was a thing my entire playthrough. Both of them, back then and even now. But come on, just look at this HUD. There's just so many main sub-meters going on. Fill it up just by dealing damage. Those timed inputs doing cool combos fills it a lot quicker though. Now the new sisters have 3 attacks while the original only have 1. And their bars feel extremely slow compared to the Vampiric Sisters. So even more differences between them. But once you have at least 1 pip, you can press triangle circle to do one of their special attacks. You can use a D-pad to move left and right to select one if you have the meter, but it'll cost you. If it's the second one, it'll cost 2 meters, like that. So there's a better counter for Saki doing some follow-up blade beams. Aya has multi-hitting 360 attack. Kagura can shoot tracking orbs, or cover the entire area with spears, or summon a second copy of herself. It's just craziness. You can toss those out, swap out characters, combo outfit, or use their ecstasy specials alongside them too if you want. Okay, we're not done yet. That pink meter next to the icon will fill up just by playing, from what I can tell. Once full, it'll say, I'm ready. Click the touchpad, have everyone show up on the field to fight beside you. Honestly, just mash away. They'll attack when you do, chase when you do, dodge when you do, and you can still swap between them during this for some kind of fighting game handshake tagging combos. Yeah, weapon wear is here for your 2 swappable weapons, not your sub weapons though. It doesn't affect them. So as you rip and tear through the undead, it'll leave some things behind on your weapons, and letting it fill up, shown by this meter, will end up slowing them down and lower their damage. To get rid of it, just do the blade wipe. Now the rate it fills is actually not too bad. You're going to be comboing like crazy, landing a lot of hits. And surprisingly, it's not a constant nuisance to limit those combos you're going to be doing. Which, yeah, it does make their classic mechanic take a back seat in this game, but it allows you to combo like crazy with no strings attached. We still have rings to buy those yellow orbs the enemies drop. There's only one this time compared to Origin where there's 2 of each, which allows you to stack them, or at least spread them around, but not this one. Since we do have all the characters all at once, that's not bad honestly. And speaking of the shop, it's pretty crazy. We can snag improved versions of all 3 weapons for all 4 characters, rings with unique passives, new attacks and extended combos, again for all 3 weapons for all 4 characters. So yeah, there's quite a bit for you to buy. When it comes to enemies, the basic walkers who will do a little leap at you, usually in groups, but they're combo food. The classic Mudman is here, of course. Can't damage him at all with basic attacks, so you need to be in your powered up form to actually hurt him. Or, like in the past, we can use our piercing hand. 3 hits, delay, do a forward heavy attack to do just that, instant killing them. Only Aya and Saki can do this though. There's these beast looking enemies who do this full screen laser attack and a leaping slam, but again, Choco food. There's some more, I can keep going, but all the enemies are pretty much combo food. They stand around with large health pools to wail on for free, and yeah, I'm just gonna let this play out. The amount of buttons pressed is insane here. I wouldn't say it's like Turtles, where I felt like you're just punching at nothing. Here you can actually do some stuff. Yeah, what do you? Yeah, in general, enemies don't put up much of a fight and are pretty passive. But hey, that lets you combo them for days. Bosses are kind of the same from the 360 game where they're a bit spongy, but the rival twin sisters show up of course, having that classic setup where one rushes you down as the other one stands back. Other than those 2, we mostly fight these new multi-phase zombie bosses. Once they reach a certain point, we can do these QTE finishers, chopping a limb or 2 off, which actually changes up their approach a bit. And honestly, these look pretty cool. I do like how each and every member have their own animations too, which is a nice touch. And that's Onechanbara C2 Chaos. There's just so much going on. That was my thought process back then, and even now, I felt the same exact way replaying it after all these years. It's just this ultimate Onechan game, having all of their ideas from the PS2 games carry over into this one place, adding more and more and more mechanics on top of each other. There's 2 weapons for you to use at all times, plus a sub-weapon. On-the-fly character swapping between the 4 members at once who all have different functions from range, speed, and damage. Not to mention delays, mashing, timed inputs, held inputs, directional inputs, rotations, launchers, sweeps, guard breaks, dash attacks, jump cancels, short hops, aerial race, perfect dodges, counters, dodge offsetting, and we also have tag in, tag out fighting game inspired mechanics from handshake combos, bench characters healing great health, and yeah, you get to pick your team order just like in Team Fighters. We have our blade meter management going on, the transformations for every character with their own unique specials. In general, the amount of meters and sub meters is just a lot now too. There's also multiple rings to mix and match, the mission ratings, the upgraded weapons to buy for each and every character, the new combos to buy, plus this having the most enemies on screen at once with a cherry on top. It's honestly an overload, not gonna lie. A lot of characters running around, a lot of weapons and attacks, and a lot of enemies filling the screen, then add blood splatter overlays and the oversaturated colors too. Yeah, for sure you can say it falls under more doesn't always mean better, not focused as well, right? And while Origin tamed the beast out of Z2 Chaos into something a little more palatable. Actually, I'm gonna do the same thing I did for Scarlet Nexus and explain what the heck is happening with the play-by-play. So we start off with Kagura, aerial ray, do some basic air slashes, air launch before tagging in Saya to finish them off. So now we aerial rave to the next enemy, do her regular air slash that has solid vertical range to hit those standing enemies. And I get a second one right before touching the ground. Now as that's happening, I'm already swapping to her next weapon. Get out a single punch to keep me hovering a bit since I was just about to touch the ground. Now from here, I make sure to do her Knuckles air launcher, then combo into that aerial stinger to send them up and away, which gives me time to touch the ground, to reset my aerial raves, and then follow again right after. I swap in the chainsaw, look for that lingering hitbox, hot swap Knuckles during its heavy attack that does relaunch, then land to catch him with my flail. Again, all these combos only last like 10 or so seconds, can really do some wild plays using some crazy amount of inputs for niche setups. Makes you think your hands will be on fire when you're playing this game, but to tell you the truth, you don't have to do any of this. You can just mash square and arrow waves over and over and it'll work. I'd be lying though if I said it wasn't interesting to mess with it, trying to see how far I can take it. But it's really up to you to make your own fun however you can with what they give you. Especially since there's no real back and forth. From enemies, you're basically fighting punching bags for you to style on and mash away. I wouldn't even know where to put it on the tier list. Can you do layered plays based on each character's weapons, passive, unique attacks, movement, and defensive options with situational uses, making them pretty distinct from one another? And again, you have access to these at all times too, for on-the-fly hot swapping. Yeah, you do. Is it really needed? Nah, not really. Is it fun? It kinda is, yeah. But do enemies and bosses put up a nice back and forth with their own unique patterns? Sadly, no. They're just stand-ins most of the time. But you know what? Gotta admit, they deserve props for pulling off this behemoth of a game at all. That any of this is possible to do in one spot. Again, it's just Onechanbara doing what they do best, pushing the envelope quite a bit. For sure, I wouldn't say it's bad. It's far from it. This game's combat engine works too well, giving you extremely responsive controls to even keep up with half of these crazy inputs you toss at it, with no hiccups to be called terrible. Which I'm guessing most would probably say it is at first glance. Slocky, sure, but that's always been the charm of the series, you know. So the gameplay is decent at worst and pretty alright, or interesting at best. If you want it to be, that's the catch. I had a good time with it still, and again, you only get as much out of it as you put in. But either way, if you want more crazy tag team action, well, this one definitely lets you press some buttons.